Hi everybody, I'm Zach and I like movies, and I'm continuing my little divulge into the films of David Lynch, and today we're talking about The Elephant Man. This was David's second feature film, and was his first, like, sort of major movie, at least a movie where he worked with a studio. And it's his first time working with professional actors. Here he's working with the likes of John Hurt and Anthony Hopkins, and it's even the story of how David got this job is kind of fascinating, because like the script for The Elephant Man was kind of being shopped around, and eventually made his way from like producer to producer, and sort of came to Anne Bancroft, wonderfully talented actress, won like Oscar-winning, BAFTA beloved by the BAFTAs. You might remember her from The Miracle Worker, most of all. And Anne was married to Mel Brooks, who she convinced him to kind of give it a shot. And it's interesting because this was one of the first movies that Mel worked on. Mel helped produce with his under his company Brooks Films. And he really wanted to push this movie, but he had to take a step back from the public while working on this, because he absolutely wanted no one to think that The Elephant Man was going to be a comedy, because his name is he's a funny man. His name's too attached, especially since this was like late 70s, and that's like post Blazing Saddles. Also would probably be post Young Frankenstein too. So he's kind of an established too established as a comedian to really like give a movie to give the story this kind of story the kind of gravitas and dignity that people would expect of it. And there was sort of like shopping around who to like work on, and who to direct it, and there were names being tossed around, and eventually like someone took a shot and mentioned David Lynch, and David met Mel, and they got to talking. They kind of hit it off a little, and then they showed Mel Eraserhead, and there was a lot of nerves. And then like once it ended, Mel burst out the doors, wrapped up David Lynch in a hug, and said, "You're a madman. I love you. You're in." And so that's kind of how we got the job, and all the better for it, because Elephant Man it's such a, this is a movie that in any other way, if anybody else made this could have absolutely been hyper sentimentalized and just completely just begging for pity. But no, this is a film that is so, it's a movie that is so powerfully and deeply human without ever being sentimental. And if you aren't familiar with this at all, this is a movie about John Merrick. He is a man in mid to late 1800s, I believe, and he is a man who is socially outcast because of the extremities of his physical deformity. Like he has like these like his head, for example, has these like a huge tumor, huge tumorous bulges. Is like he's he's like he's crippled. His like left arm is crippled. He has he's like just boils all over his back. And he's hard of speaking. His spine is scoliotic. It's very intense, his deformities, and because of that he's sort of found work, or at least what he can say, the best he could hope for work, as a sideshow attraction, which is where he is discovered by Dr. Frederick Treves, who's here played by Anthony Hopkins. It's kind of it's a bit younger Anthony Hopkins. He was still like not like young. He's not a young man, but he's younger than what we know him as. And he and Treves takes him in and looks after him. And there is always this question of like, does Treves have genuine humane concern for Merrick, or does he the means of exploiting him as like a medical curiosity? And there is sort of is it how much does he really care for him and all that? But like even within that question, there is so much genuine emotion that we see from Treves. Like and especially because Treves is who we first see early on. They treat early on they treat John Merrick, who apparently in real life was named Joseph Merrick. I'm not entirely sure why they changed that name, but early on we see we follow Hopkins as he's like sort of like looking around a circus and these other curiosities, and he hears and tells and is heard word of the Elephant Man, and he's sort of like given a show. He's given a showing, and like when he first that shot of when he first sees John Merrick, it's just this steady, patient shot of just his reaction, and it pushes in on Anthony Hopkins, just like his eyes are wide, is just complete, and tears roll down his eyes, and it has such Hopkins doesn't just have such amazing eyes, it's such a wonderful, it shows wonderful restraint on Lynch's part, because like you can read so much of how Hopkins can of what Hopkins is seeing, because it's also like, you know, you can see that he's seeing somebody who's like just how is this person lived like this, and again just the setup, just the general setup, that's practically a Spielberg shot, you know, just like the pull into that wide-eyed look. But even further, but like we still further on, it's a while into the movie before we even get a full glimpse of Merrick, and it's sort of really treating it in a way that you would like a monster movie, like I think, but in a way that feels very sort of both curious, but also you're trying to, very delicately, both in I think this movie is one that felt, if there was any like sort of inspiration or reference point for this movie, it would be the movies of James Whale. James Whale was the director. He's probably most famously known for directing the Frankenstein movies, Frankenstein and The Bride of Frankenstein. And those movies, if you have only heard of them through reputation, they are beautiful movies. They are so. They care so much for their monsters, for their titular monster, and there's so much empathy in the camera, and there, I feel like that may have been something that Lynch may have at least been inspired by. It's hard to know which points exactly Lynch may have found inspiration from, at least, well, most of the time, since he's like generally so hands off about what his movies are even about, but whether it's through this gorgeous black and white cinematography from Freddie Francis, or just the patience and of the film language that the movie sets it up to as, like there's a lot of there's a lot of reactions to what we're seeing, more than what we're being shown for a while. More than shots of what they're reacting to for a while, and I think there's so, and when we finally see Merrick for the first time, he's like huddled on a bed and just kind of bundled up, like recoiled into like just fear and shock and disgust of, when a nurse comes in, she sees him for the first time, and she just is basically in complete hysterics. And when that happens, Hopkins runs in and passes by the screaming nurse and immediately goes to Merrick. And I think that, and it's kind of a moment like that, and it's things like that sort of make the movie like sort of, again, not sentimental. I feel like even it is kind of a monster movie in its DNA, but it's a very humane movie in its bones, in its tissue, in its soul. I feel like the fact that they did get David Lynch for this, and the way that David Lynch tells this story, I think really lends to that, because like, if Eraserhead was sort of the first showing of his penchant for surrealism and just sort of these like subconscious horrors and fears that we have, then the Elephant Man is very much a showcase of his keen understanding of the human condition, mostly in our reactions to the things we fear and the things that might disgust us, but also our capacity for kindness and our capacity for uh, kindness and charity. And that's kind of why I say that this is not sentimental, but but empathetic. I feel like if someone like say Guillermo del Toro would make this movie. I love Guillermo del Toro, but I feel like if someone like him made this movie, he would have made it unabashedly sentimental. But I feel like the approach to it through this way is much more it's much more fitting, and also the performances are just so phenomenal. No, not like obviously Hopkins is just kind of kind of a distinguished master, even at such a young age at this point. But John Hurt, he has so much to work through, not just of like the physical performance. And the physical performance of John Hurt is it's so brilliant because like again like it's not just that he has all this makeup, this great makeup. The makeup, David Lynch actually tried to do the makeup himself first, but that obviously didn't fall through. But then you had a makeup artist, Christopher Tucker, come in, and he sort of constructed molds for John Hurt that he made based off of Merrick's body that was actually on display at the London hospital. And there was the makeup is incredible. It feels so. It never feels like you're looking at it never feels like you're looking at an actor under like 10 pounds of putty or something like that. It's something that like there's clearly like a lot of time put onto it. It's like 8 hours or so in the chair, just getting done up. But the fact that Hurt has had such emotional intelligence as an actor to understand how to move his body in such a way, like he knew he would have only one arm to really use, and the way that he uses that arm to kind of and even the way he uses it, just his eye, like he has effectively one working eye, because the bulb on his head, he basically has like a big bulb on his head and kind of a half sunken face on the other side, so he's able to like just do so much with one eye. And God, even his like the rest of his physicality and like the way that he talks. There's like a scene early on where like Treves kind of like tries to help him instruct him to talk, and it feels like even if I'm trying to do an impression of it would feel insulting, but like Hurt's way of like speaking in this role, his way, and again his movement of his role in this role, it's a fully embodied performance. None of it feels mawkish, none of it feels inauthentic. It's just, I feel like I'm looking at a man, and especially given the fact that like sometimes there's a chunk of the movie where like Hurt is able to like communicate all of this this pain, this movement, when he has this like bag over his head on top of the makeup. It's like this big, he has all that makeup and a bag on his head on top of that, and I think the movie, as far as its sort of story beats, it does. I think that's sort of maybe its greatest sin is that there's nothing this movie really does wrong. I think it just kind of does these it hits these story beats of this kind of inspirational person with disability story that you might have seen, that you might be familiar with enough, but like even to the point that at the end that like things that are by now cliches, like to the point that even at the end where he has a scene where at a theater where John gets a standing ovation, and it's like any other movie that would have been absolutely just disgustingly sweet, and just please just begging you to just begging for your praise or something. Here it's just feels so earned, and it feels, and there's such bold choices not to really embellish sort of moments like that. Even that the big emotional climax of the movie where like he's being chased around by this crowd, and he's like just kind of cornered in this restroom, and he screams out, "I am not an that famous line, "I am not an animal. I am a human being. But like the way that scene is shot is still obscured, most of it. It's shot kind of from this middle distance behind the crowd. And you're a part of that crowd that's just kind of there ogling him. And it again, that's so much deep restraint on Lynch's part, and again, like nothing. These things that could be so painfully cliche never really feel like that. You know, it's just a movie that's very human. It's a movie you really feel, and I guess that's really its strength. And also again, this looks great. I have the Criterion copy of this, and the transfer is gorgeous. The black and white cinematography is beautiful, and also the language that Lynch makes, but the pace of the cutting and the long stretches of silence, like at the very end, where we see that he decides to lay down, like the condition that he has. He's unable to like lay down in a bed normally. He has to like kind of sort of sleep propped up on a pile of pillows, but he finally decides to just very slowly and without dialogue, very slowly just pull back the sheets, drop down the pillows until he just lays down and rests. And it's wonderful moments of like this pure of like tender silence, despite the fact that there's also the sound in here. There's a constant rumbling hum throughout the entire movie. There's like folks, some like these like steam workers, and like this like boil there's like this like terrible character of a boiler man, and who treats Merrick terribly. But there's always this weird rumbling hum into the, like, as if you like looked under the world, there would be like men at work shoveling coal into like a boiler room. And it's such a testament to like Lynch's vision and capacities as a director, and a capacity to understand humans and their and yes, their cruelty. It does hit beats where, like, yes, we find Merrick, and people are kind to him for a while, and then people are awful to him for a while, but then people are kind to him again, and we finally, and it feels like we want to see, and we want to understand, we want to care about Merrick, and we want to love Merrick, and I think that this movie has such a strong understanding of empathy, and that is because of David Lynch. And I also think it's very curious the way that this movie was kind of possibly the sweetest marriage of David Lynch coming in and working with a studio, which later on they'll kind of be turned that into a mess. But I feel like this was such a big step for Lynch's career, and he really succeeded here. This was a great hit. This got a lot of this got Oscar nominations. This actually inspired the makeup and hair category, because everyone was so impressed with the makeup that they felt you gotta give it something. And I think that's sort of a testament to its legacy, a testament to how much this movie really makes you care. And man, yeah, if there's anything that Lynch was great at, it was making you care. And yeah, this it's a real tug at the heartstrings movie. And if you aren't ready for something like that, it'll sneak up on you and just really pack a wallop in some scenes. And like, there's a moment towards the end where the phrase "my friend" is used like 4 times in succession in different ways, and it's just in different contexts and different meanings, and it's so moving. It's almost so simple it should be deceptive, but there's a real poetry to the tone, to the performances. Anybody else would have. I really think that this is so special because of David. And yeah, that's probably all I have to say right now for The Elephant Man. It's amazing. It's an amazing movie. If you haven't seen it, it's gorgeous. Just you really need to check this out. I don't believe it's streaming anywhere right now, but yeah, you really should seek it out because it is very much worth your time. It's very much worth all the heart, so much heart. And I think that'll be it. I'll be around next week for to talk. I believe next is Dune, which that'll be fun. So let's get on with that. And for now, I'm Zach. I like movies. I love David Lynch movies. I have a lot more movies to watch, and I hope you watch movies too, because movies are life. And I hope you all take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.